Bhagavad Gita, verse on the board. Chapter 2, text 70. Vimanam Achalapatishtam Samudram Apa Pravishanti Yadvad Tadvad Kama Yam Pravishanti Sarve Sashanti Apnoti Nakama Kami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires enter like rivers into the ocean. Which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. A little more volume on the microphone. Do we have another book in English? You can read out loud. Report. Of course, you can read, yeah.
Yes, Maharaj.
Read one. I'll make comments.
How far?
Until I make a comment.
Yes. Purport. Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brink. That is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has the material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his coolness.
Okay, so the analogy is of the ocean. All the rivers in the world flow into the same ocean because all the oceans are connected. Although there's 7 major oceans, they say, 7 seas. It's like there's one river in Guyana, South America. I don't remember the name of the river that flows, but it's a huge river. It's more than a mile wide. More than a mile, and it flows very deep, and it flows very swiftly. And all that water is going into the ocean at every moment. Hundreds, thousands, millions of tons of water going into the ocean. And that's just one river. Every river flows into the ocean. But still the ocean stays the same. It's remarkable. How is it that the ocean stays the same? Because the ocean is so great, so vast, that it remains balanced. Otherwise there would be tsunamis every day. And so the comparison is that a devotee long as we have this material body, there's going to be as long as we have a material body, there's going to be desires stemming from the body. Maybe material desires, because that's what material body does. Generates material desire. It's not exactly that the body generates the desires. It's the living entity. Living entity generates the desires, but when he comes in contact with the material body, and desires are generated through the body. For example, Lord Krishna says that there's 3 sitting places of lust: intelligence, the mind, and the senses. So it's not that a body can have lust, exactly. How can a body have lust? A body has no consciousness, no feelings. A mind has no consciousness of its own. And intelligence has no desire of its own because it's not a person. These are material things. But there are places where lust, as Krishna says, these are places where lust congregates, hides, or comes out. So when the living entity identifies himself with this body, then intelligence comes up with lust, the mind comes up with lust, and the senses come up with lust. It's like, it appears as though, for example, that, when the eyes see some attractive object, they become attracted. It almost seems as if they have some kind of, the eyes have a will of their own. That generating force is lust. Arjuna asks the question, what is it that makes one act sinfully as if against his own will? And Krishna replied that Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajaguna, Samudava, Mahashano, Mahapapa, Pidyena, Vihavaya. It's lust. Lust alone. It's the mode of passion when it comes in contact with this material world. Lust, the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. So lust is a feature of the material world. Just as you could say that the spiritual world is based on lust, love, where everyone is full of love for Krishna. In the spiritual world, that's what makes the world go around there. In the material world, they sing, love makes the world go round, but really it's not love, it's lust. Lust is the perverted reflection of love. Love is meant for Krishna, and lust is meant for imitation Krishnas. Something that we're putting in the place of Krishna and trying to repose our love or our affection for. So, the ocean remains still because it's so great. And the point I was making is that the desires that come, the devotee doesn't act on them. He doesn't become agitated. How is that? Because he's so full. He's full because he has higher taste. He's not just affected by the material desires. A person who's not in Krishna consciousness, it's more difficult because he doesn't have a higher taste. He has nothing else to be satisfied with. He thinks he is the body. Just like when a young man sees a young woman or a young woman sees, they fall into love or lust, and they can't think of anything else. That's everything for them, and they even sometimes think it's spiritual because it's so overwhelming, and it seems divine to them. But actually, they don't know. They haven't experienced what divine pleasure is. Divine pleasure is on the soul. There's no exploitation, personal exploitation. In the material world, when someone loves another person, there's the actual principle is that one wants to get pleasure for himself. I love someone else as long as they give me sense gratification. Therefore we see so many divorces because one party or both parties fail to give sense gratification to the other party. So then that's the end of the relationship because it's based on that. But Krishna consciousness is not based on trying to get one's personal sense gratification. Of course, when one serves Krishna, he gets satisfaction, he gets pleasure. He gets sense pleasure, he gets mental pleasure, he gets intellectual pleasure, he gets spiritual pleasure. But that's just the nature of Krishna. But for the devotee's part, he's thinking, Krishna's so great, and Krishna's worthy, and it's my natural constitutional position to serve Krishna. That's what I'm supposed to do. Isn't that maybe those of you who are practicing Krishna consciousness, you may have experienced that you feel very satisfied because you're doing the thing you should be doing the right thing. If you're not doing the right thing, there's always some bitter taste, some guilt, or feel sorry, or something's missing. But if you know you're doing the right thing, and that's the way it is in Krishna consciousness, because it is the right thing. It's Jivar Swarupaya Nitya Krishna Das. The natural, eternal, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhaka Vana Shravanadesha Duchiti Kore Udai. The eternal nature of the living entity is lover and servant of Krishna. When the living entity is reinstated in that, then he's satisfied. Or the example is given. If you have a baby in a big crowd, big room, the baby's crying, and they pass the baby from one lap to the other lap, but still the baby keeps crying. But when the baby comes to its mother's lap, now it stops crying immediately. Because this is the constitutional not satisfied. I'm where I should be. Desires may come. I remember when Prabhupada, I was present at the second initiation, second sannyas initiation in ISKCON. Took place in Los Angeles in 1970. So they were young men, 4 of them getting sannyas. And Prabhupada was instructing them. And he basically said the same thing as this verse. That now that you're taking sannyas, it doesn't mean that you won't have any desires. It doesn't mean the material desires may not come into your mind. He said, but the difference is now you can't act on it. In other words, as a brahmachari, if a brahmachari gets desires, and if he can't control it, then he can get married. There's no harm. There's no fall down for him if he gets married, because there's 4 different types of brahmachari. And 3 of them allow one to get married. Only one of them is Brihadrata, or the lifelong vow of celibacy. But the other 3 allow one to get married. But sannyas, he can't. That's a fall down if he's not able to sustain. So that was Prabhupada's instruction to them. That there will be some feeling of attraction, but you can't act on it in sannyas. And in any station in Krishna consciousness, whether one is stationed as a grihastha or kshatriya or whatever position, there will be some desires for sense gratification. But a Krishna conscious person doesn't act on it. Because he's rich. He doesn't want to lose Krishna's association. He knows Krishna's association and the association of devotees is so valuable. How it's not easily attained to get Krishna's association. To get the association of Krishna's devotees. It's not such a simple thing, an easy thing to attain. Having attained that, the devotee is so careful, so afraid I may lose it. In this regard, Srimati Rukmini Devi is a great example. Krishna's first wife. She was so afraid to lose the association of Krishna. Krishna was playing a joke with her one time. Husbands and wives, sometimes they joke together. So Krishna thought, oh, let's have some joke with Rukmini. Let's see Rukmini get angry. And she'll chastise me. She never gets upset. That's Rukmini's wonderful qualification. So he thought, let's give her some joking, or see if I can get her upset. So he proposed that Rukmini, he called her Princess Rukmini. Princess, she's already been a queen. She's his queen. She already has children and grandchildren by him. She's known as Queen Rukmini, and he calls her Princess. And he says, there were so many other great heroes and kings who wanted to marry you, especially Shishupal. If he had married you, he would have served you at every moment. But instead, you married me. Oh, I don't have any qualifications. I'm a coward. I ran away from Jarasandha. And I'm lusty. I had so many gopi girlfriends, and people thought that I would have been married to Radharani, but then I went. And then I married you, but I wasn't really attracted to you, and I married 16,000 other women. And he began criticizing himself. And he said, I think you made a great mistake. I think you married the wrong person. But never mind, better late than never, you can change now. Wait a minute, she's trying to understand. First of all, there was no such thing as divorce. It was unheard of. But even though it was unheard of, and she could have considered, well, maybe he's joking, she didn't take it that he was joking. She took it that he was serious and that he might leave her. And she couldn't compute it all. And so she just fainted. She tried to understand what was Krishna maybe, so she fainted and fell. Said she felt just like a banana tree falls down in a hurricane. She just fell down. Then Krishna knew, she didn't understand I was joking. So then the joke was on him, so to speak. He was trying to joke with her. She took it serious. She felt that, and now, look what he did. Anyway, my point was that she was so afraid of losing Krishna's association that she would never raise her voice against Krishna or speak anything harsh or criticizing. It just wasn't her. Now, Satyabhama, that's a different story. She has a different mood. Fiery. She was like the gopis in the sense, like a left-wing gopi who likes to chastise her lover, but Rukmini never did that. So for us, we're trying to follow in the footsteps of Rukmini. How to be so thankful. We can't imitate someone like Satyabhama. We can't imitate Rukmini either, but the mood is that we're the servants. It's like Hanuman, great servant of Lord Ramachandra. He lived for the service of Lord Ramachandra. He had no other desire. Whatever Lord Ramachandra wanted, Hanuman wanted. It's not that he had any separate desires. And because that desire to please Lord Ramachandra is so great, it overwhelms all the other desires, our own personal desires. Just like the ocean. It's so full. How is he full? Samudra. The ocean is a male. Sagara, sometimes it's called. How is the ocean so full? This is the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Krishna says, of bodies of water, I am the ocean. So the ocean represents Krishna. When you think of bodies of water, you can see when you go to the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean. It's so vast. You can think this is Krishna. It is Krishna. Krishna says, bodies of water on the ocean. And one of the qualities of the ocean is you can could fill it with so many rivers worth of water. Not just rivers, but rivers and rain. How much rain goes into the water? Into the ocean. So much rain falls in, rivers come in, and even water is being evaporated. But it remains a balance. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad says, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Purnam Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete because He is completely perfect, so many complete human and units emanate from Him. But He remains the complete balance. Even Krishna, in material mathematics, 1 minus 1 equals what? What is 1 minus 1? Any mathematician there?
Minus 2. 1 minus 1 is 0.
Yeah, oh good. 1 minus 1 is 0. But in spiritual mathematics, 1 minus 1 is what?
1.
1. Yes, that's correct. Because you have Krishna, and if Krishna expands, and another expands himself into another Krishna, then you should have no Krishnas. No, you have still one Krishna, because it's the same. Not only does that work for Krishna, but it works for spiritual things in relationship with Krishna also. It's like transcendental knowledge. If a devotee has some transcendental knowledge and he distributes that, it's not that he loses it, it's not that it's now lost. He's vacant or bankrupt. There was one so-called guru and his disciple, they were impersonalists. And the story goes that they embraced and they both fainted. And when the student came out of his faint, he saw his guru was weeping. And he said, Gurudev, why are you weeping? He said, because now that I've embraced you, I've given you all my Shakti, all my energy, and now I'm bankrupt. Krishna consciousness is not like that. If you have knowledge, if you have transcendental energy, and you give that to others, Krishna gives you more. Krishna can give unlimited. Krishna can expand. He expanded into 16,108 forms, each one equal to the original, for each of his 16,000 queens. But still he was one. He's not diminished. That's the difference between material and spiritual. Spiritual, there's no loss. There's no, you can't cut or divide. It's unlimited expansions. Krishna has unlimited forms, spiritual forms, but still they're all one. Can you continue with the purport?
Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities, and he is not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. That is the proof of a Krishna-conscious man, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present.
And that's that verse, a few verses before. let's go back to 250. Vishaya vinivartante yadahara sudehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtanvarti. Read the translation. 259.
Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, taste for sense objects remains. But, ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness.
Same thing. There may be some desires for these things, but it's fixed in consciousness. Sometimes people ask the question that I'm doing things, it seems, let's say I want to do something, but if I restrict myself, and this is what the psychologists, material psychologists say, they say don't repress your desires. Freud is famous for his philosophy that don't repress your desires, fulfill them. And that's basically the theme of the 20th century, and the 21st century is continuing in the same mood. That is, when you get desires, don't repress them, just fulfill them. And of course, when you get more desires, then you try to fulfill more desires. But they don't account for, what about all the frustration when you can't fulfill these desires? You may try to fulfill your material desires by satisfying the desire. But that satisfying the desire is like pouring fuel into a fire. When you pour fuel into a fire, the fuel becomes consumed, and the fire just consumes it and keeps going, gets bigger, it doesn't get less. It doesn't go down. And that's the problem with trying to fulfill material desires, is that the desires just keep getting bigger. It's like putting fuel on it. Lust. Because the fire is lust. The way to get rid of a fire is not to give it any more fuel. If you stop putting the fuel on, the fire goes down. So that's how the devotees are taught. They're taught that what to do with material desires, tolerate. Matra sparshas tukonte shitoshna shukadukada agama paino nechas tangs tikshas varta. And that desire doesn't always mean something positive. Enjoy something. It may also mean I don't want to experience something that's causing me pain. When it's too cold, it causes me pain, so I want to get out of the cold. Well, that's, one has to accept that. Sometimes that these things come of their own accord, winter and summer seasons, and we have to tolerate. So devotional service goes on despite the things we like, the things we're attracted to, and the things that we're not attracted to. But a devotee just devotional service that he supersedes these others. Keeps his mind fixed. Continue.
Because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady like the ocean and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who want to fulfill desires, even up to the limit of liberation, what to speak of material success, never attain peace. The freedom workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis who are after mystic powers are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires.
And there's a statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Akaliya Shanti Krishna Bhakti Nishkama Akaliya Shanti Ataya Shanti. And it means that bhakti, those who are interested in material sense gratification, they're not peaceful because they have desires. And then bhakti mukti, the impersonalists, they have a desire for liberation, and those they're desiring to get out of this world, to get out of material desires. So they're always desiring not to desire. That's still a desire. They're frustrated when they feel desires. And because they think the goal is no desire, so they're avidly desiring to stop desiring. So it's contradictory. And the siddhikamis, those who practice yoga to get mystic powers, mystic perfections, they're also full of desires. So they're, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, they're not peaceful because they have all these desires. But the Krishna Bhakta, Nishkama, he has no desire. It doesn't mean he has no desires, it means he has no material desires. Spiritual desires are a different thing. You can have as many of those as you like. I'll repeat that. You can have as many spiritual desires as you like. What's an example of a spiritual desire?
To want to increase the number of devotees.
Yeah, you can. That's a wonderful spiritual desire. What else?
To serve devotees.
Yes. What would a cook think? What would a cook's spiritual desires be?
To chant.
A cook?
To chant. To keep on chanting.
Yeah, but I'm saying a cook. I'm saying put yourself in the position of a Krishna conscious cook.
Satisfied Krishna's service.
Yes, a Krishna conscious cook is thinking, I want to prepare hundreds of wonderful, delicious, first-class preparations for Krishna. That's spiritual desire. And a Krishna conscious devotee would think, I want to taste hundreds and thousands of Krishna conscious spiritual prasadam preparations. That's alright, that's spiritual. It's not material. It would be material if you wanted to taste hundreds and thousands of mundane foods, mundane preparations. Go to this restaurant and that restaurant. Go to Italy and taste everything there. Go here, go there. That's material. But if you want to take Krishna prasadam in Dwarka, Krishna prasadam in Vrindavan, or you want to go to London and taste Krishna prasadam from Radha Londonishwar, that's transcendental, it's not material. Or you want to establish a temple for Krishna. Beautiful, just like here we have a nice temple. So a lot of desire went into acquiring this place wasn't easy. Were those desires material? Some people might think they were, they just want to, they're just sectarian, they want to get their own place. No, it wasn't. It wasn't so that the devotees could have a comfortable place to live or sense gratification. But they wanted to please Krishna. So that desire is spiritual. Whenever Krishna is the Bhoktaram Jagatapasa, whenever he's the enjoyer, then the one who's desiring to perform that activity for Krishna, the whole activity becomes pramarpanam brahmavir, everything becomes spiritual. Because Krishna is spiritual. And when you make an offering to Krishna, everything becomes Krishnized. It's like an iron rod, when it's put into the fire, it becomes, by association with the fire, it becomes like fire. In fact, it becomes red hot, and it can burn just like fire. Everything that's in connection with Krishna becomes Krishnized. There's nothing wrong with spiritual desires. You can replace material desires with spiritual desires. I had some experience of this when I was, before I was a devotee. I used to spend a lot of time at the beach in Los Angeles. So I was attached to the beach. And now I've become a devotee who was going to the beach. Although I'll tell you a story about that afterwards. But so I was trying to deal with this. Still, the desire to go to the beach was there. What to do? So I was chanting, and the Krishna book came out. And if you remember seeing the Krishna book, there's a picture of Krishna and Balaram on the bank of a river, and it was a beach. So I used to chant. While I was chanting japa, I used to chant, meditate on this picture of Krishna and Balaram at the beach, and I felt satisfied. I was at the beach with Krishna and Balaram. And later on, I figured out another way to deal with it, with the beach syndrome. Because I was in charge of the Harinam party. So I took the Harinam party down to the beach, and we chanted on the beach. So I was satisfied that way also. So you can use these desires, purify them, dovetailing them in Krishna's service. Okay, continue.
But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from so-called material bondage. The devotees of Krishna have no material desires, and therefore they are in perfect peace.
That's the end of the purport. Any questions about this? Yes.
Thank you for the class, Maharaj. I was thinking that why is it that sometimes these rivers bring more water into the ocean? Why is it sometimes the material influence is stronger and sometimes it's more peaceful?
Well, we may not always be as great as the ocean. In other words, if we're not so fixed in devotional service, then we can be swept away. So that's a great stage of advancement when one is fixed. In the neophyte stage, a neophyte has to be extremely careful about his association. If a neophyte associates with materialists, his desire his desires that he's trying to put aside may flare up again. But a more advanced way, for example, Haridas Thakur, he was approached by Maya Devi herself, personified. So for a neophyte that would have been impossible to restrain the temptation for sense gratification. But for Haridas Thakur, it was not a problem because he was so fixed in his devotional service. So one has to recognize his position, not imitate someone on the highest platform. Ramananda Rai was even associated with Devi Dasis. He was training them how to dance for Lord Jagannath. A man not supposed to be associating with Devi Dasi, beautiful young woman. But Lord Chaitanya said that is his prerogative alone, because he's Ramananda Rai. There's nobody like him. We can't imitate that. And we have to keep ourselves away from such association. But someone like Ramananda Rai or Haridas Thakur, they have prerogatives because of their, it is said, that Teji is on the dosha. For one who is very powerful, there's no faults. The sun evaporates moisture even from a filthy place like urinals and stool, but it never becomes contaminated. How much foul substance is being evaporated by the sun, but rather the filthy place becomes purified because of the sun's rays. But we can't imitate that, so we have to be careful. Keep ourselves in proper association. Okay, so we are still neophytes, so we have to be very cautious. There are guidelines for us how to keep ourselves in a healthy spiritual condition. We're coming from a serious disease. When someone's recuperating from a serious disease, even when they get a little recuperated, they have to be very cautious about what they do, what they eat, because they may have a relapse again because they're just getting over the disease. Other questions?
You mentioned about the Western psychologists' instruction that one should not repress their desires. So I was thinking that sometimes there may be a situation where we get irritated or we feel the touch of anger. So what is the Krishna conscious way to deal with anger? Like Western psychologists say that you shouldn't repress it, you should like maybe blast at someone, or should we repress it?
And we're good at that. We have nuclear blasts, all kinds of blasts.
Yeah.
We have individual blasts, suicidal. How many suicides do we get every day? We can thank our psychologists for this. Don't repress. Just commit suicide, blast away. How many murders, serial killers, nuclear holocausts. This is the non-repression society. They don't know how to deal with anger. But we go to the basis. It's like when the fire comes, you're supposed to aim the fire extinguisher and the water at the base of the fire, put out the root. If the fuel becomes wet, then that's the end of the fire. So we have to extinguish the source of the anger. The source of the anger is Jayate Vishaya Pungsa Sangate Shupajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kama Kruga Vijayate. Put out the lust. It's the lust that's causing the anger. So where does the lust come from? The lust comes from I develop desires. And where do I get the desires? From contemplating material objects. So a devotee can trace it back. Say, wait a minute, this is where it comes from. So if I cure that, stop thinking about material things, stop desiring, stop lusting after things, then what is there to be angry about? I'm angry because I have a material desire to be fulfilled and something's blocking it. So I'm upset. But if you cure that, you go back and trace it out and say, wait a minute, why am I desiring these? I'm not this body. I'm not the enjoyer. Everything's meant for Krishna. Who do I think I am getting angry? I'm thinking that I'm the center of the universe and everything is meant for my pleasure. As soon as you realize, wait a minute, I'm not the center of the universe. I can't satisfy these desires. I'm not the proprietor. I'm not God. Then it takes away the anger. Or, if you're not so philosophical at the moment, when the anger comes, you can just call out to Krishna. Krishna, please save me, help. Hare Krishna. And Krishna is pure. He'll save you from the anger. Well, you can do it philosophically, or you can do it in a mode of helpless supplication. Was there some ideas how to deal with anger? I know one devotee got angry at his computer and smashed his computer, but that didn't really solve anything. He felt a little satisfaction after smashing the computer, but not that much. It would have been better to tolerate. He got angry at the computer because it wouldn't do what he wanted. That's an indulgence if he had thought, wait a minute, whose computer is this? Did he think that this was Krishna's computer, or did he think it was his? He thought it was his. He was thinking, this is his, and it's mine to smash if I want. But if he had been more philosophical, he would have thought, wait a minute, now this is this is my boss's computer. I don't know if my boss will like me smashing his computer because he wouldn't do what I want. So our intelligence is lost. We forget what's going on, and then we become angry. And we think it's okay for us to smash the computer or smash the other person. Or even smash this body. Sadomasochism, I can smash this body or smash some other body. But it's not our position to do that. We don't own these things. We're not free to do it. And it's against the law. So it's against the spiritual law to become angry. A devotee, Vacha Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Uttaropasta Vegam, Etan Vegam, Yogishahita Tira. Tira, the word sober. He can tolerate the urges, the demands of the speech. Vacha Vega, Vega means the fourth, the urge. Vacha Vega, Manasa, the mind's demands. Like sometimes the mind says, okay, you have to go to Hawaii. And the devotee starts going, he says, I'm leaving now, I'm going to Hawaii. Why? Well, I have this desire, I have. Well, put out the desire, you don't have to follow that desire. If it's not a good desire. No, I feel it, I know it's spiritual. But the mind's demands are not necessarily spiritual. For one who's not able to control his mind, the mind is his worst enemy. For one who's in touch with the Supersoul, then the mind becomes the best friend. Can't trust the mind, can't trust desires. Can't trust anger. Generally anger is not to be used by devotees, but it can be used by expert devotees like Hanuman. He became angry at Ravana. He burnt the whole city of Ravana. He was so angry at Ravana for kidnapping Sita. That anger was transcendental. That's the way to dovetail anger. Any other points? Anyone else? Go ahead.
Often when the mind starts making its suggestions, then the rational thinking is far. At that time, when the mind starts making the suggestions, then it's like one easily gets bewildered by that.
Well, you have to keep a relationship with the mind. You have to keep open dialogue going on with the mind. And my dear mind, just please engage yourself with the lotus feet of Son of Nanda Maharaj. Sometimes you have different relationships with the mind. Sometimes dialogue, friendship. Sometimes treat the mind like a respectable person. Sometimes you have to take a stick and beat the mind 100 times in the morning. And the broomstick. And at night 100 times with a shoe. So you have to deal with the mind in different ways. Sometimes very respectfully, sometimes just ignore the mind. Sometimes you have to make a deal. Alright, I'll give you some extra prasadam if you promise to let me chant japa tomorrow morning during japa period. Alright, we'll make a deal. Mind is the worst friend or the best, the worst enemy or the best friend. And when the mind becomes trained, then it becomes our best friend. We have to keep training the mind. Whatever the mind wanders to its unsteady and flickering nature. Bring it back and fix it on the self. So it's a constant practice, training the mind. No, not there, not there. Wherever it wants to go. No, here. It's like a child. A mother, she's always, a little child, she's always watching the child. Child can get in terrible trouble in just a few seconds. Not turn the attention away from a little child. Walking with the child, if you let the child go and you turn away, there's a dog or a puddle, they go into the street, they fall into a hole, they just don't know. So you have to keep vigilant. So the mind, immature mind is like that. That's why we have this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 16 rounds a day is the minimum supervision you have to give for the mind. You can give more, but not less. If you give less, it's dangerous. Okay, anything else? Yes.
Is it possible for everyone?
To chant Hare Krishna?
Yes.
That's easy. Everyone knows the tongue. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Even if someone doesn't have a tongue, they can hear others chant, and they get the same benefit. Or they can lip sync the mantra. So yeah, it's an easy process. It's Kevala Ananda Kanda. It's the easiest process. Kali Yuga, just chant Hare Krishna. And the mind will be, mantra will deliver the mind. That mind. Whenever there's problems with the mind, chant. Chant loud, and the problems go away. Because the problem is I forgot Krishna. As soon as I remember Krishna, then I'm out of trouble again. Thank you very much, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.